working on the El Plata, Argentinian essentially, and Chilean forces who moved together. I had some trouble deciding what to do, but first thing I decided to do is take the Paraguayan rebellion, because there's only Spanish royals in there, and I launched into a siege. I built siege works. I didn't have enough points to launch an assault, although an assault might actually make more sense. Yeah, why don't I not build the siege works, but I'll spend 4 points notionally to lay a siege, but I'll do the assault on them. And since we've never done that before, because I don't mind taking losses on them, the royalists can expend revolt actions to try to create units there. So let's see how siege works. Hey, here, it works. No. Okay, so we calculate the odds, roll a die, and apply results. Leadership can apply their tactical to the value. So we've got 8 to 9. That's not particularly good. You know what? No, I'm gonna build the siege work. That gives me a better chance next time, and I'm just gonna hold off on it. If I need to eliminate those units, that's fine. Right now, I just want to get that area and make sure that there's no royalist strength in there. It's only worth 3 points total. So we're not going to make a siege attack because there's the 8 extra points for that. At some point, I have to decide what to do with my navies. I'm going to combine these two frigates, but I don't know if I want them on the Atlantic side. Oh, here's Atlantic 1. This is the transfer. Aha! That makes a lot more sense, why it's so expensive. So yeah, I think I'm going to, which means you have to actually sail through the Caribbean unless you go via Spain, which is probably not a big deal. So yeah, I probably want to combine them. The question is, do I want more ships over here where I can do shipping capability, or do I want them over here where they don't really help my troops at all, but maybe I can interfere with the Spaniards more? And I'm really not sure of the answer to that. And I finish up my El Plata, Chile. I'm leaving these guys here. I gathered the navies here. They're actually 2 separate stacks for what that matters, which means I'll have them in port, I guess. I'm not quite sure what how you capture cities. I'm so terrified of ships being captured in a city that, yeah, let's just leave them out here. They're not doing any harm there. General Belgrano made a couple of attempts. That's who the ship is named after. To catch the royalists there. I think actually the royalist force may be larger, but they didn't want a chance in a battle there. They'd rather, I don't know, do something else. They're kind of tying up a big patriot force, so what the hell. And now the next will be the Grand Colombian and what? Something else. Peruvian units, which are here. We can probably, so here's the problem. We can't really bring these guys down here to combine. And I'm not sure why I started them all the way up, all the way down here, because, I mean, they're allowed to be there, but I think I'm going to be ending up trying to take whatever the hell this is, the fortress here, El Calayo, anyway. So, because of the fact that these can't really combine with the Argentinian forces, I think I want to head north with them where they can do some good, I guess. I see the why. So, these are guerrillas. I gotta take them out. So, yeah. Let's see what we got here. Ops points for that. 4, no leader. I don't know how much militia there is. Probably not too much. So I get 6 points, which I have sitting there still from, I don't know, the boats or something. Now I gotta look up there it is, the counter guerrilla table. No, I don't have that. Am I triple? Probably. Yep. So that's +1. That gets rid of the -1 for militia, which is automatic. And we're not in friendly territory for the guerrillas. So a 2 does nothing. Now that cost me 1, but I get to keep doing it. A 4 does nothing. Keep spending. A 1, that's going to hurt me. I'm going to lose a step. And we'll keep going. It doesn't have to be all that variable. Now, numbers are one thing, but I've got like a 2-to-1 attack here with everything figured in. I only get a +1 DRM off the tactical options, but I come out with a total DRM of +5 off here, which means I can't roll less than a 6. We're going to destroy the enemy. They were unable to withdraw. So that's kind of impressive. Now, the problem, and I didn't take this into account, was before I let the royalists just sit here, and if I end up sieging this fortress here, I'm going to be sitting there, presumably. So I may want to just assault that right away. So let's get these deaths here. I spent 2 on that attack that's already spent. Now I'm going to do a siege. And I'm just going to do a siege combat because I want to get out of here because it's an unpleasant place. It's got a hostile rating, which means one of those royalist units shouldn't have even been there. I'm assuming if you're in a fortress, it's not a problem. Okay, so we look at the siege rules once again. This time we are doing an assault. There's 9 factors there. I have more than 9 factors, so I'm on the 1-to-1 siege table. I don't know where the siege table is. Looks like it's on here. Which means I've actually got it on the other side of the sheet, so I don't need to pull that over. By using these little counters for my siege representations, I've got some good stuff going. And if I put them on the blank side, it just means I'm set up so that I get a siege attrition roll. If I've got the breastworks in place, it's pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to be on the siege attrition roll. There's a slight chance I won't. So I'm going to be 1-to-1. If I build siege works, I shifted a point. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to build them. The hell with it. I'm not going to put the marker there yet. That gets me 2 column shifts in my favor. I have no naval units, however. And it's weird that you get a shift to the right for having besieging naval units. What it really should be is a port has a benefit in resisting sieges. Well, no, it does make sense. The port would have a benefit of a blockade, but I can't actually do a blockade here. So, okay. But I'm going to take my losses for attrition. And now, let's see, besieging 2 shifts. I get my tactical modifier, which is +2. So I'm over at 3-to-1. +2, that's SR. The defender is eliminated there. And now to avoid the problem of the supplies, I can just go inside and capture it. And that gets me control. So that's kind of sweet. And for the final set of things, Morales manages to slip out of Guadalajara, leaving some guerrillas in place to make life a little harder, and goes up to Durango. The reason is I've got a lot of militia that I can reinforce damaged units with. So, and I do have a damaged unit there. So I want to slip away, and that worked. Again, I'm not sure if the interception was successful, but I gave myself still an opportunity to withdraw from the interception, and as far as I'm concerned, that means I get away. There's nothing that specifically says one way or another if that's legitimate. Maybe there's a fucking example, but I doubt it. I don't remember seeing one. I guess we should go look. I fucking hate rule by example. I do not see anything here unless we're getting down to like the blockade rules here for siege. So yeah. So I don't know. I'm really not sure about cities like them being captured if there's any occupying force inside the region. That really disturbs the hell out of me. But, you know, whatever. All right. I had to, I sailed forces down to here. Unfortunately, they're not part of the force that was there. So I stopped there because they can't cross the Tierra Caliente safely. The forces that are there, which include 50% militia, only got 3 operations. I moved one out into Mexico. Now, I have to make an attrition check because I just crossed a hostility area, which means I add the HL level, which, by the way the game works now. Okay, so that's +1. And I'm on an hostility factor 1 area, so I get a 3. I have to take a step loss. That's going to be one of my militia. You pretty much automatically lose at least that every time you walk out through bad terrain. That gets me to there. I move into here, and now I spend 1 more on my attack. I am 8-1. That gets me the guerrilla bonus. So I think I'm at even. And I roll a 5, which actually kills me a guerrilla. These guys are done. And the gorilla's gone. It shows up over here. That frees this force up. However, I'm a little worried about that big Mexican force there. I think now that I have Guadalajara totally under control, I'm going to wait and try to consolidate my force. I'm not sure. I did want to attack him before. Let me look at it and I'll think some more. And let's see if anything else exciting happened. I laid siege over here. I decided to stand pat here because this is worth more than this. I don't know. This is a 2-point swing. This is a 1.5-point swing, but they've got a chance of attacking me if I run away. I tried to leave northern Chile. I was intercepted and attacked on the 1-3 table at -1 and defeated them. And I've gathered my forces in southern Chile. I'm planning on turning Chile, into a royalist area, which more or less, which will mean, then I can concentrate my forces here and maybe build militia and get them into place down in southern Chile to hold the areas. To some extent, you can consider militia that control an area to be kind of like patrolling forces rather than, actually guerrillas. I'm sorry, militia that are guerrillas controlling an area. You can consider them more to be spread out on patrol so that they don't just seem like, they're just banditos or something. We have a couple more things to take care of at this point. One is the blockades, and one is the navies have to return. Let's see which is which. I believe the navies return before the blockades are checked, but maybe I've got that wrong. Check for siege blockade surrender first, then the naval units go back to port. Okay, so the siege blockade is section 6.6. They've got some references in here, a fair amount, not as extensive as I'd like, but they actually did a decent job on them, I think. Okay, so in both cases I spent the points. Do we have naval control? No, fuck, we don't. Okay. I would have put the ships here instead because they can return home. So we have naval control there. We don't have naval control here either. We can't get it. But I needed to build up the siege works in order to have a chance of a to have a reasonable chance of a successful assault. So we keep looking. There are no units of the besieged size in the area. If these conditions are met, I roll a die. On a 1 through 4, the fortress surrenders. And it does. And now I may move into the fortress if I wish. Definitely want at least 1 unit in there. So we'll put that there. Keep this here. And we captured a big unit. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And now the ships get to go home. There were no ships captured there. I'm going to send these guys back to Havana. These others, geez, I don't know where they should go. Chile's no longer mine, but this is. And over here, this is mine. And I get to rotate units, and otherwise we're going into 1812 already. And you can see it moves pretty quickly once you kind of get through the mechanics or mechanisms of the game. They're clunky, but once you kind of get the flow of them, I'm not spending a lot more time than I am on the video on this. So you get kind of an idea of how fast-paced this is. This is not going to be a long game. I looked at all those turns. You know, it's a fair amount of turns, and the complexity that the rules seem to demonstrate, and had worries that, you know, I'm looking at a 12 to 20 hour game. I don't think so. I think I'm looking at more like a 6-hour game, 8-hour game maybe. The small scenarios, they say, I'll be about 3 hours each. I guess there's 3 of them, 9 hours. I think I can get under that. Right after my silliness about the Game of Thrones, we're back to playing. So I did the uprisings, and honestly, for something that's fairly unimportant, raising a couple of militia. The expense effort, potentially, the expense effort in terms of mental capacity from me on this particular task in each game turn is very, very painful. The other thing that's painful, of course, is counting everything. But, you know, honestly, that's just sort of mechanical. I hate counting, but, you know, so like the royalists went here and here. And it's weird. You're only allowed to do it where somebody else is controlling. And I assume that means full control, not partial control. But I'm not sure. Because partial control would be really useful, because then you could incorporate those militia right away into your armies. And I may have screwed up before. But with full control, well, I have to look for stupid places. And then I'm going to end up going into guerrilla mode. But what's really kind of fucked up about this is I've got militia here. I've got more militia there. The fact that these are guerrillas mean that they control it. So I can actually try to go in there. If they weren't guerrillas, there would be no... If we both had guerrillas there, then it would be, I guess, partial control. I'm not sure. But the rules on guerrilla control are just so odd. Like, they control an area unless there are regular troops there. I'm not sure what that means. Like, do they just not count if there are regular troops? Again, not specified, but that's kind of how I'm playing it. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly can't tell what, you know, how I'm interpreting the rules. It feels like it's changing all the time. And part of it is I have to page through and I have to make the decision again and again. And I haven't written things down because I don't want to mark up the rule book, especially with pen, because my pencil doesn't, that one might cut into it enough, but my pencil doesn't really work on it. Somebody suggested I should use a softer pencil. I could use a grease pencil on it, for Christ's sakes, it's a glossy color. So that gets me to time to count the points and start building the units. And I've pulled a lot of the units into the build section. These others are going to show up on the map. Well, I don't think I did this last time, but this time I'm counting half points and leaving them on the board because militia count just a half point. Therefore, I can spend that point. The Royalists, though, are at 25, 34 points. However, they do have some more units now, so maybe I can at least build some. But they want to fight, I guess, and I've been kind of not really pursuing that as actively as perhaps I should be, because they have all these points right now, and as long as they're maintaining control of most of their empire, fighting seems like a good idea because they'll just get to keep rebuilding things. What's going to go bad is, I guess, when the liberals take over, and then I don't have the situation anymore. Now that can start here, and it's probably going to come about somewhere down here, which means there's a significant part of the game where I'm just not getting many points. Oops, I forgot to roll for the Spanish extra points, or the Royalist extra points. It's -1 for turn 5, for less than turn 5, for less than 6. This time we get an extra point, so we'll just add that there. So we're ready to start the operations phase. I did the reorganization, built a whole bunch of Spanish units in Cuba, so I got this up to 9. I think I need 3 more units, and then I don't have to worry about that shit anymore. All I have to do is prevent Cuba from falling, but at least, again, by my interpretation. The wording of this is a little weird. Pretty sure I couldn't land and move through it, but now that I'm in Tierra Caliente, I can leave it without having to be penalized. Unfortunately, I may have to abandon Veracruz if that's the case, which isn't that huge a deal, except that it is a fortress, and I probably don't want to give it up. The other option, though, would be giving up Panama, which looks like a healthier place overall. The problem is this is my only port in this area of Mexico, so I'll be shipping more troops in, I guess. I got a horde of troops here, both sides, built up quite a force. And elsewhere, you can see I'm trying to do guerrilla operations with both sides because it's the only way you get control of stuff is to be guerrillas. For whatever reason, which seems kind of ass backwards, but whatever. And we're ready to start. Unfortunately, I did not increase my forces in the Rio de la Plata for the Royalists, but they are increasing there. Ooh, we gotta gather these guys together. I could not. I had a bunch of. What does P mean? P doesn't mean that. P means Peru. These were forces that should have come in Peru. Do I own any ports in Peru? That's a good question. Yeah, I actually do, so I could actually get all these forces into Peru. Great. Because this is a port. That didn't fall yet. So that's actually a big deal. I thought it was Chile because, they're purple, and the Chilean rebels are purple, but no. Purple for the Royalists just means local forces. I have to think about these fuckers. What's the roll on them? Because I got extra points. And this is one of the things I'm constantly having to look shit up. They may be activated the first turn any Plata unit in Trisbanda Orientalis, which happened. And that's something you probably wouldn't do on your own. Each operates normally until it is eliminated. Well, it's not the first turn, but where are they added? I guess... They may be activated. Activated. I don't know what that means. They can operate only in Banda Orientalis. I mean, I can have them try to save my thing. Of course, if they do that, they may not stack with Royalist units. The first time who enters there? Any Plata units. These are not Plata units, these are Plata rebels. I don't know what that means. Do they count? I don't know. Maybe. Like these are special units. I think they're called Plata rebels. I don't know. It's so fucking hard to tell anything. Anyway, we're in operations. Maybe I'll figure this out later. I'm done for tonight. Did stuff today. Probably do stuff tomorrow. I'm not going to get a lot of playing done in either case. Right, so doing the El Plate Chilean units. Didn't do a lot. I kind of cheated and put these guys under this because they're too at risk there, honestly. And that allows them to stay in control here. The main thing being they can't operate in conjunction with the Peruvian forces. So what happened was, I guess over here, I launched an assault and the attackers lost. Now, they're not really pro-rebel units. I don't mind killing them off. And then over here, General Belgrano made 2 attempts to attack that force. He succeeded in the second attempt, but got a bloodbath, so lots of losses on both sides for whatever that's worth. Could have eliminated the entire defending force if it wanted to stand and fight harder. It's kind of nice to have I'm not sure. It makes more sense to me that the attacker would get to make the choice of how much blood gets spent. Of course, this is something of an abstract combat system. Very abstract. And, area-based games tend to be. So there's kind of it kind of makes sense that maybe the smaller force would have the option to withdraw or whatever, but quite often that's not the case. Quite often it's a matter of how hard does the attacker get to push. Napoleonic era, which this is, usually the defender probably can disengage. So I'm not too unhappy with that. I was actually thinking about this in conjunction, trying to remember what I was thinking about. Oh yeah. With Empires and Arms and games like it, like EU and stuff, which is that a fair amount of the game is spent, maybe not for as good a reason as in EU, on counting up your points and building your units and stuff that's not just fighting. The actual combat, the actual movement and combat on the board, the actual operations that you undertake actually aren't that big a deal. And if you look at Empires and Arms, you spend more time moving on the board, but quite often there's long periods of peace, etc., where nothing's happening at all. And then if you look at EU, which is really a different kind of game in a lot of ways, you're doing, like you are in the computer game, you're doing so much in terms of, playing with technology, diplomacy, all kind of other things that are going on that, these sort of mechanical actions, and most especially developing your economy and developing your colonial side of things, that quite often you're spending the vast majority of your time on that kind of bookkeeping side. Here, it feels like I'm spending more time on the bookkeeping side, but again, it's not being done in an efficient manner, and that's really the problem. I've got all these pieces to kind of hunt and peck through instead of, I need 3 strength points there, that'll work, and this, and then the counting, there's not the same kind of ease that there is in some of these other games. Now, EU, you have a whole spreadsheet you have to work with, but with Empires and Arms, you know, you have an amount that your country makes, and you just keep track of that. But here, because it's a revolution going on, maybe it's a little bit more like Vietnam, where you know you're keeping track of all kind of different things. But that has a spreadsheet too. What's kind of missing here is something that helps you manage the population. Instead, all you have is, hey, who controls it? And the rules on that are so iffy. The other thing this has a high proportion of is looking up the rules. And I honestly don't think that, given how disorganized they're written, that will ever get too much better. On the bright side, it's not that long a game. What I'm talking about is that the combat system for this is actually lighter than the Empires and Arms combat system, with its multiple rounds of combat trying to reduce morale. Same with the EU. I think Empires and Arms only has 2 rounds of combat. I'm trying to remember. Same with the EU. But the EU has it diverted into firepower and melee. So there might only be 1 actually in early periods. For this, it's really, there's some extra fiddling about. You don't have to figure out morale or anything like that, but there's the fiddling about with the tactical options table and the combat table to see what happens, which takes a little bit of time, but I think it's a little less. I'm not writing things down like I am in Empires and Arms and keeping track of the results of each round, you know, and the reduction of the morale and everything. That just feels a little bit more engaging in some ways than some die rolls on here. They both generate the same kind of neat stuff, though, which is cool shit happens. Here, I don't know how much I'm getting off the tactical options table, but like the OCS system, with its surprise and column shifts and everything that happen off a die roll, it means the combat can be highly variable. Anyway, what's going on? So I've got the Peruvians have moved up here after clearing a little bit of space with guerrillas, I think, and I didn't want to do a counter-guerrilla action here. This is pro-royalist. Chances, I actually tried one and decided to stop. I had like several points left. But I made the decision not to keep fiddling about with them. You know what I haven't done? I haven't done anything with my damn navies. I can't figure out anything to do with them now. I mean, if I brought them around to the other side, they could challenge the Spanish Navy, which probably is worthwhile, but I kind of like the idea that I have the run of this coast. And I think what it's going to change is if I go after Banda Oriental. For the going further, Bolivar manages to make it into here and succeeds in taking it with a quick storm, and the troops from Santa Fe slipped out. And in Mexico, my forces moved in, got away, moved in, destroyed the force here, moved here, and I forgot to roll. Nah, I think I did roll. I had like 1 counterinsurgency, which did nothing. I think my numbers and leadership and all that meant that I had no chance of losing a unit there. That puts me over to the royalist side of things. I can flip this to mark that. Like the rebels, and I had to move my boats out of these spaces because you've got to do it every turn, because otherwise, if the other guy sets foot into that territory, he takes over the city and captures whatever's in it, which the boats are either captured or destroyed. So it's just something, you know, if I forget to do it, I'll fudge it. I don't believe that that's what's intended by that rule, but I have no idea what how the cities are supposed to work. They just seem like doom to me, which is horrible for the Spaniards, the royalists, because they cannot land their ships anywhere where the rebellion could possibly walk into, because the Patriots always move first. And yeah. I don't know what's going on. Over here. The Royalists moved through Guadalajara, attacked it, destroyed the forces there. They left no units there and continued on to get themselves into a position where, you know, maybe they can force an interception type situation. Over here, I'm gathering forces to prepare to face Boulevard. I actually shipped some forces down, the majority of my forces this turn down there. And over here, we had a massive bloodbath which wiped out both the Patriot and regular armies. The Patriots are the ones who chose for the bloodbath. It was probably a mistake because there's all these points that the Royalists have. I probably did not want to take those losses. The advantage to it, though, was nope. I thought I didn't have just militia there. Given that I just have militia there, it was a mistake. I could have stacked units together and fixed them, but we leave things lie. This is not the kind of game that I want to go back and try to fix things over. In southern Chile, the Royalists won the battle, and in La Plata, the Royalists slipped away, got up here, and destroyed the small force that was present there. And these got to go home. I've got no siege checks. I think the only thing I have is to send my ships home. It's off to get a tooth yanked, I guess. Okay, well, I made my way through the uprising phase, which is always exceedingly expensive mentally for me, for no great reason, but in part because I'm trying to translate through here and everything else. You know, if there were a little, I don't know what. I'm trying to think if there's some kind of marker that I could use that would make me happier. Something this size, something pretty small, I could probably get away with, but I've already dedicated those to something else. And it's two-sided, you know. But yeah, we had a couple of increases there. You can see the stacks are getting quite large to the point where maybe I'll want to start using these things. But one of the problems I have with some of these small on-map boxes like this, I've played games with them. I don't feel like they terribly help much. I mean, yes, I could split units up into the box, but until the box is about this size, I'm really kind of just creating big stacks the same way as I am here now. The difference is, of course, on here, they have to be stacked in one big pile. And there's actually room for multiple piles here. It's not like most area games. This one, the actual stacks that you have on the board are of some importance. I filled out my requirements so that I can, you know, not take a penalty as the Royalist player. And I've gotten my 12 steps through the course of the game. So that's how I'm interpreting it. And God knows what it's meant to be. And we're ready to jump into the, I guess, the Patriot operations phase at this point. Again, you know, these top-heavy stacks make sense because you really want to have your forces consolidated if you're going to get in a fight. If you're not going to get in a fight, well, then all you really need is like a militia everywhere or something. So, yeah. And there's no particular attrition cost to being a big force or anything like that. A huge force actually crosses the Andes, you know, better than a small force does, for whatever sense they're supposed to do that. All right, we'll come back later. And yeah, I can't smoke because of my tooth extraction. Boy, that's stressing me out. I've done the El Plate Chileans for the Patriots now. Belgrano marched into here and basically spent all his activations attacking there. For the Chileans, I moved them up here to give them some sort of defensive positioning, at least if the Royalists move up there to hunt them down, Belgrano will be able to hit them next turn or something. But the honest truth is, this really isn't very protected. Now, I want to be able to gather these forces together because they can move together and operate together. And between the two, I can take all of Chile out and more or less set things up so it will be very difficult for the Royalists to get a hold there. Because once I capture areas completely, if I garrison them a little bit with some mobile forces, I'll be able to crush any rebellions that happen down there. Now, potentially a rebellion could be larger than one would think if it ends up, being able to be one of the Indian and slave revolts. But for the most part, I'm really, even that's not too worrisome. And there's no possibility of that down here. So basically what you're looking at is a single militia unit appearing, which a few units can crush. And I'm going to put this on the back burner now. I did have to cross the Andes. There's an expense to that. I'm expecting to take some losses. And I've already got some units for La Plata to operate back there. So that, I don't have to necessarily cross the mountains with any of that force. It was pretty easy to cross it on the way over. Basically, I can assure myself, no matter how big my force is, that I can take only one step loss if I have some money, or at worst two, and take that loss on a militia if I have militia in the force. This was able to make its attacks with no losses whatsoever, and now the question is, do the Royalists want to go up there to kill that little stack of Chileans, or let them gather together and march their way down? If I want to kill the stack of Chileans, well, this stack can certainly do it. And I could have hidden them further back or something like that. Alternatively, though, I could try to collect more points or fall back, and just, put myself in a position where I'm less at danger. I find the big stacks moving around without any real supply considerations, without attrition being an issue because they're big, whatever. I find that kind of unsatisfying, to tell you the truth. I mean, at least in something like Empires and Arms, you have to build your supply net to keep your units in supply, and you have to pay money to keep your units in supply. There's no cost here, And then in something like EU, you have absolute limits on the size of the forces that you can bring to bear. You can't build armies beyond a certain size. But in this, there doesn't seem to be any limitation, so biggest stack wins, and that's pretty much it. Although if two big stacks face each other, there is possibilities that the randomness inherent in the system can open that up. That has not been the case down here. The La Plata Argentinians are able to do what they will because I've focused in the north with the Royalists. I could have focused down there. Our guerrilla operations are hard. I mean, even with Bolivar here, I'm looking at an even table running where there's a 1 in 6 chance I lose a unit, and a 2 in 6 chance that I'm able to destroy the guerrillas. I had some extra movement, but I didn't want to go crossing here because I'm out of militia now. So I just cleaned up the militia problem. In the same way down here, the guerrillas, I managed to clean them out, but I used up all my points to do so, basically, and I lost units. Hunting those things down is kind of painful. However, once you get control of an area like down here, you can just keep doing it. So I don't foresee it being a problem once, the south is cleared out completely. The only thing, and the reason it's kind of not a problem is because my forces for the Patriots are per nationality. I'm going to be building troops down in these areas no matter what. So I'm going to have points to put together forces for that. There's still these kind of weird situations here, things that I'd change in the game if it was compelling enough of a game to make me want to do so. For example, having to pull out of the ports every turn because there's too much of a chance that cities will just get captured, and not being able to be in cities. I feel like there's just some things that the rules are just not right for, and they probably weren't in the original rules written the way they are. I don't know what was intended with them. Maybe there was easier siege rules for cities than there is for fortresses or something like that, which would all make sense. But maybe they kind of didn't work right. All right, on to Mexico, where it looks like we're going to have a big fight. I don't feel like the Mexican forces are that powerful. There's a fair number of militia in them. Granted, the royalist forces up there are stronger and will just keep getting stronger, but I'd rather lead them on a merry chase. I don't think that I can beat first one stack and then the other. So, given that, well, let's see if we can keep slipping away. We've got decent leadership, some cav. Maybe we can. I don't know. That's a huge stack that I've committed up there. Maybe I should have made the attack, but I chose not to. Okay, so let's see what we did. Up in Mexico, we kind of spread out, actually, because that big force was only able to squish the guerrillas. It didn't have enough movement to move into here. Had I had enough movement to move into there, I might have gone for the big battle. Instead, I swept around here and tried to kill these guerrillas off, but I didn't manage to find them. It's one of the problems. Beauvais marched into here and did a lot of damage to Bolivar. A couple rounds of battle. Actually sailed forces in here, took an attrition hit, and set a siege up. Now, there's no chance of that siege succeeding at this point, but it gets me one of the 2 points here, which I don't know how valuable that is, but taking a point away is kind of the valuable part. But it also puts me in a position where if I can make it harder for the Grand Colombian revolt to like subsist, I'm in better shape. Nothing exciting over here happened. These guys are the rebels. I ran away from them a little further into Chile with the thought of, I don't know what. I mean, I really don't know what to do with them. If I'm up, I thought about going up into La Plata, but here's the problem. Bigger forces have an easier, safer time crossing the mountains than small forces. So that smaller force would have taken proportionally a larger hit by going across the mountains. And boy, we don't want to do that. You know, at least here we might end up like being able to run away or get a lucky combat or something like that. So, I don't know. And this siege can never be accomplished because I don't have my fleets in place there. This fleet is staying out on station to help blockade this, I guess. But these guys can go back in because there's no risk now. And it's particularly dangerous, again, for the royalist fleets because wherever they are, they could get captured if they're not in a fortress. Now, something like this is a fortress, so I've got places that I'm safe. But, you know, if the fortresses fall, if I have no fortress to hide in, the Patriots can go find that space, walk in it, they're occupying it, they capture the city and take the port and possibly take the ships, which seems crazy to me, but whatever. And we'll go down to the next turn. And how are we doing on time? We got time for another turn on this camera, on this video. Okay, so not surprisingly, in a game with so many little special rules and kind of a chaotic presentation of those rules, I've forgotten something rather consistently, which is the Royalist Repressions rule. Which is whenever the Royalists clear an area of Patriot units, and I assume this is by combat or anti-guerrilla operations, that they manage, they have to make a die roll. Now, I'm pretty sure that I cleared Santa Fe in this manner. I'm not sure that I've done anything else. I am almost positive that I've done something else, but I don't know what. I'm going to make a single check in Santa Fe. No, I'm pretty damn sure that I've done it elsewhere, though. Which means and it hasn't happened too many times. On a 1, we're going to put a Royalist repression in Santa Fe. Okay. Other than that, I've got to deal with the damn revolts again. And yes, I mean, I'm playing this rather slowly. It's really kind of an insipid game. And it reminds me in some ways of some of the Miranda designs in terms of like, oh, there's all kind of special rules, but they just kind of don't gel together into something cohesive, you know? And you just kind of feel like, yeah, I'm doing these mechanical actions, but I'm not getting something where I have a real feeling for the overall situation developing. And, you know, it just doesn't hang together in the way that you'd like it to. And yeah, you know, a lot of times with the old Miranda games, I think they're wrong, and I'll give them another shot. But like the Roman, the Ancient Worlds or whatever, which I know some people really like, they just didn't do it for me because I didn't feel like I had some overall driving vision there. I felt like I had a bunch of little patches all kind of sewn together that didn't make a single statement, really. I guess a quick representation of the points that I have available for each side. You can see Chile has, the revolt has failed essentially down there. Yes, there are still Chilean units, and I could revolt here. These are uncontrolled, so they're like, this is, to me, this is unbelievable because the lack of Royalist presence should not mean the lack of a nationalist movement in the area. If you look at something like Randall Reed's 1776, yeah, I remember a developer's name, or a designer's name. What about that? That's pretty amazing. Ooh, I actually have 2 more points here that I forgot about. I counted Cuba as only 1 point. So anyway, you know, there's just things that feel like they weren't really as well considered as maybe they could be, where the lack of a presence of Royalist forces, yet the lack of a presence of Patriot forces shouldn't mean that the area just kind of goes neutral completely, I don't think. It makes a lot more sense that if there is not a royal presence, someone is going to take over the government there. And the question is, who is it? One side or the other should be creating a force in that location. Now you could, and there should also be the possibility of a rebellion against that side. I guess you could do some hand waving and try to say, well, you know, there might be some, you know, conflict going on there, but it's at too low a level to really worry about that. Real forces aren't being formed because neither side has forces in the area. I don't really buy that. I don't buy the fact that, you know, if you formalize things to getting a militia unit in the area, it's a significantly different situation than an area that is being governed by one side and rebelled against by the other. There should be something going on in all those areas. I don't understand what the single strength militia represent, if not kind of exactly what we're kind of talking about here. There should be 2 militia there or something. I don't know, 1 from each side. I really just don't know. Just to work on the reinforcements, there's something interesting. A bunch of Peruvian royalist forces came into play. They have nowhere they're allowed to show up because they don't have a royalist port, so in Peru, so they just go into the build pile. I can build them up as, you know, pro-royalist locals. But also a bunch showed up in Colombia area, which are marked as Venezuela. So you can see this stack increased. They started buying some troops. The amount of points of troops that the Patriots can build is actually pretty limited. I'm not getting a lot of production off of them. The Royalists can focus in one area and dump a lot of troops into that area. And then, one exception being in the Peruvian region, which there aren't a lot of pieces to build left. So they're getting a lot of points that I can't spend somewhere else. They don't even have a navy I can build up or anything, which is kind of problematic. So, where I've shown the greatest success, I don't have the capability to build up that army, and it's actually one of the smallest armies out there. We do have some new leaders showing up, though. Martin over in La Plata, and this Pezuela that I don't know where I'm going to put, but he's pretty damn good. Unfortunately, he has to go in a port, and that means he's not going to go down in Chile and start leading forces down there. And that's really an issue, is that this is at threat, and if I lose the Banda Oriental, I got an issue. And the Portuguese can't fix that issue for me. They can, if I do lose it, they can come in and make sure that the Patriots have a problem there, but the focus of my effort is going to be in the Caribbean at that point. And if I can get a foothold in Peru, then I can start moving downward. But right now, I'm too busy trying to defeat Bolivar here. And you can see I got to the point in the game where I got enough troops on the board in certain stacks that it's just become impossible to manage. I mean, imagine this stack here. Now, here's the problem. I don't know which stack that is anymore. So that's Central, which I think is this one. Those are mainly new forces. And the plan for that is to march down and, take Peru. I've also consolidated some of the stacks of the Patriots into these. But, honestly, these kind of holding boxes aren't very easy to recognize when they're just boxes like this. I prefer some of the other techniques that have been used. For example, in Empires in Arms, the big number on the unit, this is the 6th Corps or whatever. It's pretty easy to see that. The general doesn't cover up the whole counter here. I've got the general on top of the counter. I need the general available, but I also need the name of the unit and be able to refer to it. Another option is the way the Zucker games do, where they have counters for the leaders, and you see who the leader is, you recognize who your leaders are. I know Bolivar, I know my leaders to some extent, and I'll become more familiar with them over the course of the game. I will not be able to become familiar with counter that I can't really see underneath the named counter. The leader has to be on top, and that army counter has to be visible. Do I have the same issue with a similar game, a game that has a similar situation, American Civil War by Victory Games? No. Let me tell you why. The armies are actually limited to their geographical scope. Here they're named by geographical scope, but they're not really limited, and they don't suit my purpose. So, for example, this big force here, well, that's the Army of the Center. Where's that supposed to go? I have no idea, but these guys are national, and the Patriots, and that's a little easier to cope with. But this, hey, it looks like it's in the center. Well, I start looking at the others. I've got Peru and Lima, all stuff that's down there. I don't have a Mexico army. Maybe the Army of the Center is supposed to be Mexico. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But yeah, the historical divisions of these units doesn't make it easy to use them the way this particular scenario is developing. Anyway, we're ready to go into the operations phase at this point. It's been pointed out to me that I haven't been really careful about who's doing what. Like I just say, I've done this. Which, yeah, that's notably confusing. So right now I'm operating the La Plata and Chileans, and they marched down here, had a successful battle against the royalists there, and then they marched into here, chased the Paraguayans away, who I guess are now kind of pro-Spaniard until things change, or pro-royalist, sort of, and laid siege, building siege works against whatever that is, Montevideo. And I brought my fleet down for the Patriots down there. Now that fleet's kind of exposed. It's possible that the Royalist fleet could come down and fight it. Maybe we'll see a naval battle. On the other hand, the Royalist fleet is doing something. However, if I can, open this up and reinforce it, that changes the world a little bit. And conceivably, I could reinforce it from forces from Caracas. But the problem with that is I'd have to fight the naval battle before I can land the troops. So probably don't want to do that. I might just be willing to accept that I'm going to give that up and then do a naval invasion if I need to. And the naval invasion doesn't have to be there. It could be against Buenos Aires, which is also a port. If I can get a port open down there with the Royalists, I'm trying, then they have a foothold getting back into the southern area of the continent. And now we move on to the central region with the Grand Colombians. Central area, Peruvians move up here and try to do some counter-insurgency operations. That doesn't work well. They actually lose a unit for that. Where are the rest of the units I just lost? Shit. No, those were Grand Colombian. And Bolivar tries to slip out of here, and Boves catches him, destroys him. He survives. Rather than going here, I think I'm allowed to withdraw all the way to Haiti, which I choose to do because it doesn't look like the Venezuelan revolt is viable anymore. And in fact, it looks like the Royalists are going to be able to march down and take over most of Peru as well. So this is not a good situation currently. Of course, historically, the revolution more or less gets wiped out before it comes back when the royal policies change and they stop being quite so violent. I also threw a fleet down here. I think the fleets all get to combine, so that gives me a little bit of protection over there for the Patriots. Trying. Bolivar will be able to raise troops in Haiti. However, I think he needs to have money for that, and there's no real source of money there. I'll have to look a little closer to the Patriot Haven rules. Money can be obtained, though, through revolts. So I can concentrate on revolts there to start building up a force that could conceivably invade. Of course, it can't get from here onto the continent unless the Patriot Navy is able to get it out off of Haiti. Could just march into Santo Domingo, though. No defense against that. And I'm finally on to the Mexican side. That consolidated force isn't very big. It went on some anti-guerrilla operations. I found something horrible, which is that I had this unit as a guerrilla. I'm just going to let that stand and wipe it out. Only militia are supposed to turn into guerrillas, which is weird because they have a bonus. I tracked that bonus in play. Essentially what happened is I lost a royalist two-step unit that instead of a militia that costs a quarter as much. And then we moved back to San Luis Potosi in order to, I don't know. I mean, we can't defend together with the guerrillas, so the idea kind of is let's spread things out as much as we can. Both of these forces, I believe, the royalists are too big for me to handle, and I'm kind of in an ugly position, but at least I'm tying down Royalist forces. That's about all I can hope for at this point with the Patriots, is to allow some semblance of Patriots to exist somewhere. If that's just down here in Argentina, that's fine, you know. The strategic situation, the battles are pretty much entirely one-sided at this point. If I could have caught, you know, the Patriots here, I think that would be a one-sided battle. That's not as certain because there's a fair number of Mexican rebels there, and they have the cav advantage, which can be huge. The cav advantage is a 2-point die roll modifier, which is pretty damn big. The leadership's equivalent. So as long as the force is, you know, close on that 1 to 2 or whatever, maybe we could see something valuable happen where the Mexican rebels get the advantage. But up here, you know, this was cleared out, marching down here all the way to Guayaquil, cleared out. On the other hand, trying to leave here, the Royalists trying to leave the tip of Chile. They got caught. I think it was almost automatic that they got caught and just wiped out. There really wasn't much that could be done. Now, this siege did not have enough points to have a possible surrender. And it's something I have to remember. Honestly, you know, so my little counter fixes aren't enough to resolve the issue, but they help a little bit. And as long as I do all the operations in one step and, you know, in one sitting or whatever, I'm okay with that. But I would need more counters to keep track of what's going on otherwise. Over here, we have some blockades, which means I think for the first time I have a chance of a successful blockade. Because they spent their 4 OPs, and it means on a 1 through 4 the fortress surrenders. So we'll do the first one over here off to the west. That one's surrendering, and the more easterly one is not. Now, I've got the question of whether or not the Royalists want to keep their fleet out there. If they don't, what does it mean? Not much. If it was Royalists, it would mean a big deal because it means reinforcements can come in. But I don't think reinforcements can come in for the Patriots through the port. So what I'm probably going to do is withdraw my fleets back here where they're pretty safe. And this is mine now. And the militia goes away. And we've pretty much won in Gran Colombia. It looks pretty bleak coming down through Peru. There is a fair-sized force here in Chile and another fair-sized force out there at Montevideo, which I probably need the Patriots to combine those to be able to face this, actually. And then here in Mexico, the rebels are sneaky enough that they seem to be able to get away from everything. This force moved in, could not possibly catch them. This force had a chance to catch them, but they had still a cav disadvantage. So these Mexicans might come sneaking down and try to do something in the Gran Colombia region if they can. The problem there, of course, is Boves' forces are going to be able to increase. There's a fair number of losses. What's basically happened is the Royalists have lost the south, but they don't need to maintain huge forces up in the north except to face the Mexicans. That's it for this turn. And that's it for this video, so we'll send this sucker up. I did forget one thing. These guys are operating in the field, so they had to take a guaranteed casualty. I paid a couple of points to supply them, but you know, I have to get a militia in there every turn to to be able to survive. Now, that's no problem, because if you were present in an area, you partially control it, so you're able to build stuff there. So as long as I have troops that I can put in that I can afford to lose, like militia, you know, the siege can be indefinite. All right, now it goes up.